Plan legislation, establish new businesses, innovation zones, permit companies with large area lands to form governments carrying the same authority as counties, impose taxes, form school districts and courts, and provide government services. The measure to further economic development with the alternative form of local government has not yet been introduced in the legislature. Sisolak pitched the concept in his State of the State address. I can't believe they're called that, by the way. Delivered January 19th. The plan would bring in new business at the forefront of groundbreaking technologies without the use of tax abatements or other publicly funded incentive packages that previously helped Nevada attract companies like Tesla. Sisolak named Blockchains LLC as a company that had been committed to developing a smart city in an area east of Reno after the legislation had passed. This is fucking terrifying. The draft proposal said the traditional local government model is inadequate alone to provide the resources to make Nevada a leader in attracting and retaining businesses and fostering economic development in emerging technologies and industries. What do they mean, the traditional local government model? What about the structure, the traditional structure of American government isn't enough for these corporations, okay? Hold on a second. This is fucking America, okay? What problem do they? Is it democracy? Do they have a problem with like the democratic labor laws, perhaps? Like, what's the issue here? Yeah, these are company towns. We've done this before. Part of Las Vegas is owned by companies. Well, sure, part of the land of every state is owned by companies, but these are company towns. We've done this before. Oh God, I wish I had like literature on hand. Speaking of purple prose, this is something that deserves to be described in evocative language. If you ever want to really want to cement your appreciation for anti-capitalism, you need to read up some of the stories of fucking company towns, okay? Back in the day, when the government didn't have quite as good of a reach over the broad territories of the United States, often a permission was given to corporate entities to essentially just build a town. And, if you have a factory or if you have mines or if you have another location of interest, then why not just build housing right next to it and have all your employees live in that housing? And they'll pay rent to the company. So rent gets taken out of their pay to the company. And then what if everything they bought came from stores that we own? You know, their groceries, any medicines that they need. There's a company commissary that they get everything from, and of course it gets taken out of their paychecks. Yeah, y'all played Outer Worlds? That shit used to happen. It was real, and it was bad because people died in debt. Because if you live there, you're renting from them, and you're buying your food from them. They have absolute control over you, and they just run you into eternal debt. Yeah, the song. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I sold my soul to the company store. Yeah, they would have their own currency, too. You weren't paid in US dollars, good old-fashioned currency. You were paid in company dollars. Which means, again, all the money you make there doesn't mean shit anywhere else. And even if you do flee, you're still in debt to the company. A lot of debt. And even more, very often these private towns had their own police forces. Police forces. Gotta pay your debts. This is a nice kneecaps you have. Would be a shame if anything happened to it. It would send people out to collect debts, too. Strike breakers. These were the worst of the worst. Arguably some of the worst working conditions the United States has ever seen since the end of slavery. And here's a bill about it. The Governor's Office of Economic Development would oversee applications for the zones, which would be limited to companies working in specific business areas, including blockchain, autonomous technology, the Internet of the fuck is this? The Internet of Things? Robotics, artificial intelligence, wireless biometrics, and renewable resource technology. Zone requirements would include applicants owning at least 78 square miles of undeveloped, uninhabited land within a single county, but separate from any city, town, or tax increment areas. Companies, Jesus, they have a cost threshold. Companies would need at least $250 million and plans to invest an additional $1 billion in their zones over 10 years. The zones would initially operate with the oversight of their location counties, but would eventually take over county duties and become independent government bodies. The zones would have 3-member supervisor boards with the same powers as county commissioners. The businesses would maintain significant control over board membership. Guys, having the same legal powers as a county means they would have a sheriff. What the fuck? Ah, hello, Las Vegas DSA. Allowing corporations to run their own county and sidestep regulation sounds great for making the rich richer and terrible for everyone else. Governor Sisolak wants to catapult Nevada straight into a dystopia. Will there be local elections in these zones? Will you be able to vote for your innovative commissioner or your smart grid comptroller, or will this be a democracy-free zone? The fact that they don't even mention elections or democracy in this write-up is pretty fucking telling. We've tried company towns before, and they've been a disaster for workers. These innovation zones can only be construed as an attack on the working class. We should be investing in communities, not corporations. This is exactly what I mean, by the way, when I talk about capitalism requiring an underclass, okay? Whether it's external or domestic, it needs an underclass. And there has never been a cleaner definition of an economic underclass than people who live on company property, pay company wages to company-owned grocery stores to survive a little longer each day. These are obviously an attempt to circumnavigate some regulations. If they're operating on a county level, I don't think they could get away with that much because they would still be subservient to state legislation. They would still be subservient to those regulations, but nothing at the county level could be done. Obviously, nothing at the city level because it's not a city. Yeah, it's just, these are just company towns. Yeah. Wait, the Internet of Things is a media term that refers to the integration of internet capabilities to everyday items for data collection by larger tech companies. Great. Vosh, can you explain why an underclass is required and not just common? Because any system where the people who are in power generally benefit from like an exploited group is one which is going to trend in that direction. This is the direction that we always trend in. It's happened in essentially every form of organized society forever. And capitalism requires it as well. Socialism is unique in that if done well, ideally, there shouldn't be an underclass because there shouldn't be an incentive to create an underclass. But insofar as human society has existed up until this point, yeah, it just seems to be something we naturally trend towards. Though we've recently been trying to export our underclass. For a while in America, we had slavery, and they were, I think that's pretty obviously being a part of the economic underclass. That seems pretty easy to me, pretty easy designation. And you had sharecroppers after that, but you also had the company town folks, and you have all your Appalachian coal miners. They weren't exactly living it up. But ever since the 1950s, we've been outsourcing more jobs, and people bitch about that, but on the whole, it's been better for the American worker because it means that now the underclass that does the dirty work of the industrial labor that we need to prop up our society as it currently exists, we just ship it off to Southeast Asia, and undocumented immigrants as well. The 13 million undocumented immigrants in this country who get paid lower wages because they get paid under the table because they don't have because obviously they can't be paid above the table because they're undocumented immigrants, and all the agricultural work that is done by them. Yeah, underclasses. I just want to be clear, by the way, when I say underclass, I don't mean like they're worse than us. I mean, that's the situation they're put in. Yeah. Yeah. Just want to be clear about that, okay? Sheesh. Would these companies get the right to imprison their own workers? Sheriffs operate at the county level, and sheriffs have the ability to jail people. They don't. This article doesn't say like they have the power of a county except for X or Y. It just says they have the power of a county. I suppose that with some finagling, the bill could make exceptions for that. But if we're talking about an area that's not a part of a city and it's being given county powers, what is the broader county going to send sheriffs in? How does that work exactly? I think they would just have their own sheriff, The difference, though, actually, is that sheriffs are elected. I don't know if they'll be electing theirs. We need a law to make illicit feudalism illegal. I think people underestimate the extent to which all these old labor trends still exist. We still have slavery. There are more slaves alive today, right now, 2021, than there have been in all of human existence. Now, most of them aren't in America, but a good number of them are. from the obvious ones like sex trafficking, which is a major issue in America. I think we're also up to unprecedented numbers with regards to that as well. But you also have prisoners and prison labor. Remember when they were sending poorly equipped, untrained prisoners in California to fight firefires? Or to fight wildfires? Pretty wild, right? I mean, it's pretty fucking crazy. Basically slavery. I mean, it is slavery. And we still have it today. A lot of the old shitty things that we tend to associate with like old society still exist today. They've just been shoved out of the way, which is one of the reasons why I'm critical of economic globalization. Not because there isn't an economic benefit to it, and not because it makes America poor. It doesn't. We've grown incredibly wealthy, and the average person benefits from it as well. Just economically speaking, if you wanted to be very, utilitarian about it, you're displacing a lot of suffering from the first world over to the third world, because they're the one in the sweatshops. So it's there you go. But what stuff like that does is it keeps the global poor invisible. And that's a really, really, really big issue. We do the same thing with undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants are kept silent and out of the way. Why do you think ICE is so fucking hard on catching them and going after them? The collective demonization of undocumented immigrants makes it much harder for Americans to sympathize with them. There are 13 million of them here. They make up a substantial portion of our labor pool, an unbelievable portion of our labor pool. They're necessary. If all the undocumented immigrants up and disappeared, America would, I was about to say collapse. It would at the very least have some pretty significant economic issues, like right off the bat. Society would take a while to recover, like significantly. And likewise, all the sweatshops in Southeast Asia that we, have all of our cheap Disney toys made in. Millions and millions and millions of people, but they're out of the way. They're quiet. Every once in a while, you get some expose that gets traction about the poor conditions at these sweatshop factories, or you'll have some neoliberal come up and talk about how, actually, sweatshops are better than subsistence farming, which means that those were the only two options that we had, and everything that's happening is fine. You get every once in a while you get people thrown out there, but for the most part, it's just kind of a quiet issue. And it's a quiet issue that affects a number of people, which I imagine is greater than the total population of the United States. Just in Southeast Asia, all the people caught up in the supply chains that we have a hand in. But it's quiet. And you know who else would be real fucking quiet? These people. Trust me, okay? Or read accounts from company towns, all right? If there are bad labor conditions or bad living conditions going on in these company towns, those companies will find the ways to make people stay quiet about it. Whether that be docking your pay if you talk about it, or making sure they know they're fired if they talk to the press, or restricting social media use, or requiring that like all posts go through, like you have to, you'll be penalized unless like this gets checked by a so on and so forth first. Or hey, if it's a company town, who's providing the internet? They would have complete control over their internet. A lot of stuff they could do. Couldn't run out to a Starbucks and go use their internet because they own the Starbucks, or the Internet of Things bucks. It's scary. That's all I'm saying.